Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash. I've been doing Radio Dead Air for ages. But in addition to that, I'm also an IT professional. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, who also works in IT. We'll be taking your tech questions. Send those to requests at radiodeadair.com, or you can leave them in the YouTube comments on the video. Just double check audio levels here. We sounded okay to everybody out there? Everything sound okay? Am I too low, too loud? I sound fine?
Looks like we sound good.
Okay. How much is Mike a lot louder than I am? That's a good question.
I should speak so they have something to compare to. That would be an important thing to do.
Mike is louder, yes. That's what I thought. All right, how about now?
Moles and trolls, work.
How about now? Are we both? That might be too loud now.
It's impossible for me to. Well, I could unmute us, and that would.
Still a bit louder. Sounds about even now. Still a bit louder. All right, hold on. Let's see what we can do here.
That's really weird listening to that first talking, hearing it from you, and then hearing it on the channel. It's like, wait, did he say that? No, that's the channel. I got to stop doing that.
How about then? This is so stupid. I hate this. Right, you say something.
I mean, I spent part of the day playing around with OBS, so I didn't change anything on my end.
All right, that looks about right now. It's pretty close now. All right.
Okay, let's just go with it.
Plugins being stupid. All right. I have no idea what happened here, but yeah, it's fun. Make sure I've got turn that up a little bit. All right. Sorry about that. Live, everyone. All righty then. Let's dive into the news because we have some questions coming up. But this is one that'll make everybody feel just, it's a feel-good story of the year to start off with tonight. So, IPO, initial public offering. You probably heard the term IPO before. What this means is a company is going public. It means they are offering shares to the public that the public can buy, and by
for the very first time.
Yeah, for the first time. And by doing so, the public has a chance to get a piece of the profits of that company, and in return, the company gets a large influx of money from people buying those shares.
And some companies, might really need that money. They might have a really good thing going on, but they go, we've got a good thing going on. Excuse me. But we need to expand to take advantage of that good thing. So we're going to do an IPO and be able to do that. Now, IPOs have a lead up period. You can't just go, we're going public. You got to line up banks. You got to file a bunch of paperwork with the SEC, which you're not, allowed to lie in. And because you're not allowed to lie in it, sometimes things in IPOs get revealed that you didn't really want to reveal, but you gotta.
Yeah, it's not like you have a choice on it. But the thing about an IPO, and also another IPO, is something where previous investors can use that as a chance to cash out, because it's been one of the little tricks of the tech world for a while. Is a bunch of investors buy into a company, a lot of hype gets built up, the company goes public, has an IPO, and then the first investors who help build up this company take the profit and run, and then the company eventually promptly crashes because it was just inflated with hype and it wasn't going to do anything.
And the way they have that is because their initial investment, the whatever contractual investment they had, granted them so many shares when an IPO happens or something of that nature.
So with that context, a big IPO that was coming up is a company called CoreWeave. Now, when I explain to you what they do, you're going to be like, what? What you may or may not know about all of this AI garbage is it needs a lot of compute power, something data center level of compute power.
In some cases, multiple data centers worth of compute power. If you've got a lot of users, like say you're OpenAI and you've just done another plagiarism machine by pissing off the grandfather of Japanese animation. Not that I was able to pull that example from just anywhere, mind you.
Yeah. But their CoreWeave's business model was they took out a lot of loans to buy graphics cards, the AI accelerators from NVIDIA, and then rented them to everybody else. That was their business model.
It was basically a company like OpenAI or Microsoft or Apple goes, we have this much compute, but right now we need this much compute. And so CoreWeave would be like, we can provide that much.
Mike, you have your fan going?
Yeah, do you have the noise gate off?
The noise gate's on. We can still hear it. It's only so it can only do so much. It can't work miracles.
Okay, it's off. So
perfect.
Much better now. You need this much compute extra. CoreWeave goes, yeah, we can provide that for you, and you rent it. And now some companies, if they go, we're going to need recurring amounts, might be able to sign deals where they say, hey, we get it at this cost. We'll pay so much now, and as we need it, we'll pay more. But we are first in line or second in line or whatever, in case there's a bottleneck on your compute.
So, because essentially the idea, the only way this works is if CoreWeave can earn enough money renting these GPUs to not only pay back their loans, but turn a profit. Yes. Now, when they started doing this, let me see if say in the article what the rate was, because it's changed considerably. When they started doing this, it was something like $5 an hour of compute hour or whatnot. I don't know the exact metric of work, but it was like $5 per. Now, as of 2025, that rate has dropped down to $1 per. So they're already effectively making a fifth of what they were when they started this up. So already,
for some companies providing rental effectively of stuff, 1/5 might still be considerable profit. Might be. I mean, it would hurt your balance sheet. You wouldn't be happy. But in CoreWeave's case, it may not be. Or rather, I'm going to go with is not. And the reason I say is not is because it's in this article. I saw the number. Hang on. Aha. Last year, before this IPO, they reported a net loss of $863 million. And that was when their revenue had increased by 737%. So they got in a huge amount of money and still lost nearly $1 billion.
And also, getting investors does count as revenue. It's all a matter of how they report it. So if they get more investors in for that year, their revenue goes up. But that's just a one-time thing, baby. Well, people looked at these numbers. They looked at what CoreWeave had to offer. Wall Street was all waiting with bated breath because it's another AI company. So, of course, it's going to skyrocket. But then they started noticing problems before the stock went on sale.
Yes.
CoreWeave
I should note, we should note, in the weeks before the stock goes on sale. Because you got to say, when you say we're doing an IPO, you don't get to say we're doing this next Tuesday. It's announced well in advance.
So CoreWeave had set a valuation to put about $40 a share when the market opened. Now, the idea is people would go in, buy $40 share, and by the end of the day, the price has gone up and the shares have gone, the stock has gone up. And,
for example, on the start of the day, some of those people who wanted the $40 shares might not have been able to get them fast enough. And maybe they had to pay $42 or $43 or $45 a share. And the price goes up. And unfortunately, the price went down.
Well, I was getting to that. Because when it started, they were expecting, it hit $50 a share. Then that got revised to $48 a share. Then $45 a share. Then $42. Then $40. It opened, and immediately the price dropped to $39 a share.
I'm seeing on the chart here, it actually got as low as $37.56.
It closed flat. It at the end of the day, it managed to come back to just $40. Nobody got anything extra. Yeah.
It has since gone up 3 whole cents.
$40.03.
This is not what you wanted to see on what everyone was expecting to be an amazing IPO. Oh, this is going to be an amazing IPO. It's going to be the first of the big AI companies that you can buy into that is not open AI. That's fantastic. Amazing. It stunk.
Yeah. And part of why is people weren't interested in buying it. So there was no demand on the shares. They weren't hard to come by. They actually sold less shares than they expected to.
Yeah. Now, so there's a number of reasons for this. One of the reasons that was coming out in the few days beforehand, up to a week and a half, 2 weeks beforehand, was that some of their clients were cutting back on their own data center builds. So remember what I said about these companies going, we have this much compute? So a company like Microsoft, who is the example I'm using here because they had this much compute and they said, we're going to be building out this much more. And then they said, you know what? We're not. We're going to cut back. We're not going to build out that much more. Turns out we don't need it.
Yeah.
And it's not because it was cheaper for them to go with CoreWeave. It's just that they're going,
we don't need it.
Is there a market for this stuff? We've been throwing a lot of money at this. Do we actually have a market? And this is it's really starting to sink into a number of people, including finally some tech pros, that maybe there is not a market for the AI slop they've been generating.
Well, it's mainly that they can definitely give it away for free, but when they have to start charging and make money, well, they can kind of give it away for free. So mostly people just fart around with it. But when they actually have to start turning a profit on it, that starts to be a problem because it's not coming in. So if there's no demand for extra compute, if companies are going, we've got enough to serve our needs for right now, we have no need to expand, then there's not a point in a company like CoreWeave. So
yes, Kill Switch. They're asking after the IPO, do we actually have a market? Well, not CoreWeave. The Core people are still like, oh no, we're going to be okay. We're going to do stuff. It's going to be amazing because they kind of gotta. They have to try to keep that hype up.
There are not a lot of new companies sprouting up that require the services of a company like CoreWeave. It's pretty much just OpenAI and one or two others, but not a whole lot. And if you don't have any clients and you've taken out a lot of loans that you have to pay off to keep running, there's no profit coming for a while. This is a bad investment.
And especially given some of the banks they borrowed from have sort of a history of making bad investments. Now, I would imagine that if you took the history of every bank that has ever existed, you could go to any bank and go, what has been your worst investments? And if you lined them up, you could say, wow, you've got a history of making bad investments. But realistically, this one bank whose name I can't recall right this second.
SoftBank?
I think it is.
Oh, crap. It's SoftBank makes a lot of bad. They're a Japanese-based company, if I'm not mistaken, and they make a lot of bad investments. Like amazingly bad. Well, so take that as you will to see what kind of how the market's going to be looking, but it didn't go well. I'm a little happy about that. Next story. I'm only bringing this up because this is weird and wild. Back in the day, back in like the 80s, 90s, early 80s, 90s, software licensing became a big fucking issue. Especially because Microsoft brought it to the forefront. Lots and lots of companies, official companies, were not paying for licenses of their software. So,
and not just companies, by the way. The government got caught multiple times not paying for software licenses, including in some janky ways like, hey, will you make this software for us? Great, we're going to take the trial version and we're going to make 9,000 copies and put it all over the Air Force.
And so Microsoft, and it was mainly Microsoft that led the charge on this, and a couple other companies, they formed the Business Software Alliance, and they proceeded to sue people. They worked with Customs and Immigrations because that's what handles trade copyright enforcement. I know, it does.
And there was someone else they worked with. There was another. It wasn't the state troopers. It was someone, I forget who it was, but yeah. To the point where they were also doing radio commercials and maybe the occasional TV commercial in certain markets saying, hey, is the company you're working for using unlicensed software? You can secretly let us know and we will give you a cut of the proceeds when we sue them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was very effective because eventually, probably before the end of the 90s, it became unheard of for companies, official companies with paying taxes and crap. It became unheard of for one of them to be operating unlicensed software because if they were open to huge liabilities, and Microsoft was more than happy to come in and sue the piss out of them.
Yeah. And by the way, because they had the police with them, they could basically just show up and say, hey, we've got this sort of warranty type thing. We're going to audit you. If you were say you had 600 employees, but you only had 599 licenses of Windows and 600 computers, they go, oh, well, that's a huge stack of money. So there proceeded to be a very big rush in the middle towards end of this period in software compliance, where you would have a software compliance officer in the company whose job, and maybe the job of his branch, was making sure that everything you had was licensed.
So that's why this story is really surprising. This is not some rinky-dink mom and pop. This is not some small business. It's not like a little car dealership. This is Siemens. Siemens.
AG Siemens.
Siemens. A lot of Siemens. This was Siemens is a large company based in Germany. They're a multinational conglomerate. They do lots of different things, and they've been caught pirating a lot of VMware software, or rather, pirate's a terrible term. It's copyright infringement. Actually, the Business Software Alliance was what brought the term pirating into the common parlance, when actually the crime is copyright infringement.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. It's in this case. It looks to be, from what we have now, that they have way more copies in the wild than they've actually paid for.
Yeah.
Running on there. So for the big companies like Broadcom and Microsoft, you can buy license bundles. You can say, I need 1,000 licenses. Maybe you only got 800 people, but now you got licenses to spare for when you're going, oh, we're replacing Bob's computer. Do we need to have 2 licenses while we're replacing Bob's computer because one's on his old computer and one's on his new computer? And that's where stuff like this can get tricky.
Well, they also kind of tripped up because they revealed in trying to renew their licenses with VMware, they revealed they had a large number of products which VMware had no record of Siemens AG purchasing a license. So historically, let's say they had 4,000 licenses for a certain set of software. And that VMware has that on record saying y'all have 4,000 licenses. And now all of a sudden, Siemens is saying we need to renew 5,000 licenses. And VMware
in this
says,
case, it looks like it's the equivalent of, instead of saying 5,000 licenses, it looks like they came to him and said, "Hey, it's license renewal time. We need to renew our 10,000 licenses." What do you mean 10,000 licenses? I mean 4,000 licenses.
Yeah, it was big.
I fully suspect, because VMware wants a jury trial, but I suspect Siemens will settle very quickly on this.
Because if this is like open and shut, all they have to do is look at the numbers, and it's very clear.
Now, I will say the reason that Siemens may not settle is because Broadcom bought VMware, and there's the possibility that Siemens will claim, "Hey, no, we really licensed all this stuff. We bought 4,000 direct from you. We bought this many from this reseller, this many from this reseller, this many from this reseller, this many from this reseller. Check your paperwork. We're good. You're the one to screw up." So, which
maybe
has never happened before, of course, in the industry that they would admit.
Just in general, this is like someone robbing a bank with a Tommy gun and a Model T running outside waiting as the getaway driver. It's like, do people still actually commit this crime?
So, I'm going to seg here, but if you saw that happening, you wouldn't think the bank was being robbed. You would think a movie is being shot.
True.
And you would just go about your day.
It's like a company this size. This is a billion-dollar company easily. The revenue they go through year in, year out. It's a massive company. Companies this size don't make this kind of screw up. And
$185 billion company.
$185 billion company. Companies this size do not do this. This is
the only thing
unheard of.
If it's not either of the situations that we've said, situation one, we're not going to get caught. Situation two, they bought from resellers and paperwork is not in order properly somewhere. Then it's going to be something like the compliance team decided to just piss off. It's like, no, we're good. We're fine. How are you?
I would not have brought the story to the show, except this is like finding a fucking unicorn. These like we don't
see things of this scale very often, is what it is.
Yeah. We got one more for the news tonight, and this one is just, good God, this is sign of the fucking times.
This is a who hurt you.
So we've reported, or we've talked about reporting. I don't want to act like we actually do reporting here. We do commentary based on reporting. We talked about a few weeks back how NVIDIA's RTX 50 series has some flaws, and quite a few were released with missing rasterization performance, resulting in the cards being 10% slower than they should be because there was a physical flaw with the hardware. And people were like,
NVIDIA is still selling them.
Well, kinda. So it's been discovered.
So NVIDIA is not recalling them. How's that?
Yeah, that's the thing. NVIDIA is not making people return them so they can replace them. Now people are still selling them, only they're calling them B stock, and they're acknowledging that they're faulty. And the reason why is the RTX 5090 is in such short supply. I'm not going to say in high demand. I'm going to say short supply. It's in such short supply that the RTX 5090 is regularly selling for $3,000 USD with an MSRP of $2,000. So it's selling a third over its street price, which is already incredibly high. $3,000 for an RTX 5090. Unheard of for a gaming video card. And NVIDIA is still maintaining the pretense this is a gaming video card. I mean, it's got a Republics of Gamers release, for fuck's sake. And, well, they're trying to, a couple of outlets are trying to make lemonade out of this. They are selling these damaged with 100. These, I would call these damaged. I would call these flawed. But they're still selling them. Now, this is why I would be leery as hell of buying one of these, because the fact that the raster units are disabled, but the card is still reporting to the driver and other software that it is an RTX 5090, means that could potentially cause some glitches that will be hard to run down in the future.
Indeed. Simply
because when you have a driver, it has the stats of what the card should be. It has, it's like, this is what a 5090 is, but you're presenting it with something that is not a 5090. Now, there's the one that's the cut down model for China, the 5090D, which the driver would be able, if you gave it its own specific code, its own SKU, that you could enter into the driver and say, okay, this is the damaged one. Be aware it's different than the real one. That would make a difference, but NVIDIA hasn't done that. In fact, NVIDIA is considering these defective, so they're technically not supposed to still be sold, but they are. So, and yes, Baron Kaz says, these don't qualify for warranty service because you are knowingly buying them. So they don't, you can't buy one of these and then return it to the manufacturer to get, an RMA to get a correct one, because these are already done. You can't do that. Hell, this kind of seems where the market is right now, which is stupid. The 5090 is effective. It was not a serious launch. They didn't dedicate enough production run at TSMC for the 5090. They have diverted most of NVIDIA's devoted most of its time on the assembly line that it's getting from TSMC. It's devoting most of it to their AI accelerators. So, hi, Grady. So this is NVIDIA's own fault, but they're not particularly concerned about it. It's what AMD, the 9070 XT and the 9070 are selling like gangbusters, even though AMD provided what would normally be considered a normal launch amount. Like they didn't like understock these. They presented people with, all right, here's like what we would normally sell on a regular graphics card release. And they sold out. They're hard to come by right now. So this is NVIDIA is doing this kind of on purpose.
So, but then the thing I'm going to add to this, remember our first story?
Yeah.
CoreWeave? Quite a bit of money that NVIDIA is getting right now. I'm not going to say it's the majority of their income, but quite a bit is from AI accelerators.
Mm-hmm.
And so if CoreWeave suddenly stops buying, which they're probably going to have to do,
and other build outs are stopping. Microsoft stopping theirs, Amazon stopping theirs, everybody
NVIDIA's going to go, theirs. Wait, what? No, we like your money. Give us money. They're going to have to suddenly somehow go, we need to reconvert all these lines to not be AI accelerators anymore. Oh, that's going to take several months.
Yeah. This is, depending on how hard and how fast the AI crap crashes, this could be really bad for NVIDIA because it's not easy to pivot manufacturing for stuff like this. You have to rent out reserve is the word. You have to reserve lines at TSMC way in advance because there is a huge demand for TSMC services because we don't have that many viable chip makers, and TSMC is the cutting edge. So
yeah, I mean, they're good.
If you are not reserving in advance to make your products, then there's going to be a long time before you can actually make them. And AMD is probably they are poised. This is all they are doing their AI accelerator stuff too as well. But they apparently reserved enough to provide a real release of their cards. And presumably the 9060, when those come out, there's going to be enough supply of those as well. So yeah, this is uh-oh. But anyway, don't buy one of these. I mean, it's $3,000. You shouldn't buy it anyway, but don't buy one of these because we don't know what issues may. It's not just like this is a cut down model, because it's not. It's one model that has its own model spec that it's not following. It's an out of spec model, and that can cause software issues later. We just don't know yet. Don't screw. This is literally a defective product. We don't know what could happen with it. Don't buy these. And if we get to a point where they're used, any of the RTX 50 series, you're going to have to be very careful on buying a used card of this series because just be screwed.
You don't know what you're going to be getting.
All right.
And there will. I think there will be someone who eventually, who wants to sell these things and lie about it, will come up with a way to make the reporting on it lie. Yeah. They can say, "Oh no, there's really all the ROPs are there, really."
Yeah. Anyway, that's the news for this week. Now we're going to look at your questions. Let me get this up. I did not prepare the extra material to show things. I didn't prepare the overhead projector. You got to give me a second.
You got to go mimeograph some slides.
Yeah, I got to mimeograph some slides. Yeah.
So this is how old Nash and I are. There was a machine in the school office that the teachers would take and they'd make their test on, and then they'd run it in this thing and it would print that, it would do purple.
Yep. That smelled copies. Like ass. That purple ink smelled like death. And the reason why was because at the time, copiers, yes, they did exist, but they were hella expensive and schools couldn't afford them. So they used the mimeograph dittos, and that's why all of the tests were purple and all of the sheets were purple, and it was so weird. It was just
and why your hands were purple.
Yeah. And everything smelled like balls.
Sniffing those dittos to get a bit of a high. I'm going to seg there while Nash is finishes. So there was a guy I knew in high school. I mentioned this probably on Blue Sky the other day, who he was the guy who smoked anything. Like I tried looking him up on my high school page and I couldn't find a record of him. I don't know that he graduated. Huh. One day in gym class, he saw that there were wild onions growing in the field where we were playing baseball. And he asked me, "Can you smoke wild onions?" And I was like, "I don't know, man." I just don't know.
No, don't do that.
Dude, I know someone who's, okay, this is a South Carolina thing. I know someone who smoked Brillo pads, okay? So,
Onions have that the element in onions that make you cry, you would be inhaling that. The chemical doesn't go away. You would just be putting it in your lungs.
Yep.
Ugh. Anyway. All right, let's get to
I think it's still better than Brillo pads.
Probably, yes. All right, first one tonight. Hi, Nash and Mike. Monitor question. Do you have any experience with monitor overclocking? I have a Dell S242-1H and wanted to know if I could push the refresh rate from 75 hertz up to 90 hertz. Do you have any tips or recommendations? I know the main trick is to keep the processor cooled, but I don't know how to find it or attach a heat sink. Could I run the monitor caseless? Thanks, Joseph R. Okay, first off, let me explain. Let's give some context here. Monitor overclocking sounds kind of weird. Monitors
I'll be honest with you, Nash. I didn't know this was a thing until this question.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Monitors have a refresh rate. This is how fast the rate at which the screen refreshes the image. And it typically, the base refresh rate for the longest time has been 60 hertz. That means it's like 60 for every second. It will do 60 frames of
image.
60, yeah. So 60 frames per second, that's 60 hertz. And inside the monitor, there is a processor separate from its own computer that handles this. It's the refresh rate. It handles it and says, okay, you can go 60 hertz. Typically, you can go under that. 30 hertz was a thing. Not something people widely use, but you could, in theory, you could do 59.9. I have seen some weird monitors that had a 59.9 hertz rate.
I want to say it was 59.97 for some reason on the last time I saw the monitor.
I don't know I don't know why it is. There's probably some reason for that. But you can also tell the computer to go above that refresh rate. But some monitors won't allow you to do this because it says, no, I can only do this much. And you have to force it to go above that. If you do, you are telling the processor that controls the refresh rate to go above the rate it was above the refresh level it was rated to do at the factory. This is monitor overclocking. So if you do it right, you can get, say, this in this case, and I'll put it up on the screen here. In this case, it's a Dell monitor. It's a 1080p monitor that maxes out at about 75 hertz. 75 frames per second, better than 60. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to push it up to 90, I'm assuming to play some more higher frame rate games to get a smoother experience when you're playing. The trouble is moving the processor to a higher rate is just like any other overclocking. You're pushing more power through it, and that means more heat. And more heat has to go somewhere. Otherwise, it could potentially cause damage to the processor. And also, it's a matter of getting lucky, because even if you do tell it to go faster, some of these controllers can't. Some can. Some can do better than they're rated for. But at the factory, all they do when these chips come off the line is they test it to see if it can do the specification. If it can, good. They don't see if it can go past the specification. Some might not. They just want to hit that target. So you might get lucky and have a chip that can go, oh yeah, I can handle 90 hertz or 120 hertz or whatever. I can go way up. I can do more than I'm rated for. Or you can get one that says, man, I'm just barely doing 75. What the hell are you doing to me? What are you doing? I got time for this. I'm 30 or 40 years old. I do not have time for this. So those are the two challenges. You have to deal with the heat produced, and you have to make sure the chip can actually do the overclocking as what you want to happen. this is what you're talking about. This is why I'm starting to get a little iffy here. You're talking about running the monitor caseless. That means taking the case off of your monitor to run it open and let it get more air cooling that way. There's a reason they put them in cases.
It's to keep random stuff off the electronics.
Yeah, and also that they do need to be shielded for reasons. They do produce interference. So running one of these things caseless, not recommended. Not recommended. I can understand if you were in a position you're trying to save some cash and you want to mess around and you don't want to, you're worried about damaging your monitor. I would not attempt to overclock your monitor unless you can afford to lose it. This is not like with CPUs. CPUs and GPUs, overclocking these days, they have protections built into them. The industry recognized that people like to overclock their stuff, so they built in protections, not just for that, just for basic ones like overheating. If your CPU overheats, it will go, my give up, and shut the whole system down. If it runs unstable, it will shut the entire system down. It will do whatever it can to save itself because they, actually, they're kind of made to overclock themselves these days out of the factory. Your monitor has none of those protections. You were flying, you were off by the seat of your pants to try to make this work. I don't know if they do or not, but I expect they don't because these are not made to do this.
Yeah. Well, no, but there are people who do this, by the way. And because I had not heard of this before I saw this question, I did do a little bit of research. I know. And apparently the way you do this is setting up custom profiles dependent on your video card. Mm-hmm. And you go, you either step up slowly. So if you're at 75, if your monitor's refresh rate is 75 hertz, you go, I'm going to go to 80. Is it stable there? Okay. How about 82? It's stable there. And you find the point where it's not stable, and then you crank it back down some. But again,
even then, monitors already run hot. They do build up some heat, but they run in such a way where that doesn't cause a problem.
Yeah,
excessive heat might.
Yeah, I've never run into a model of monitor that had fans built into it. Outside of, hey, we mounted the fans for this laptop and a fan for the laptop on the back of the screen because the way things were set up, we could. So, barring some large scale CRTs or something, never seen it.
My recommendation here, Joseph, is if it were me and it was a monitor I relied on, I would not do this. I would not overclock it. That would be because you don't know how stable it's going to be long term, and you don't know if it's going to do damage to the monitor. If you can afford to get, if you have no problem messing around with this monitor and knowing it could die, the trick is trying to find the processor. I'd have to find a teardown and find where which chip in there is the processor. To attach a heatsink to it, you'd probably need some thermal tape. It wouldn't be the best conductor, but it would be the most reversible conductor. You'd need to find, considering monitors are like, they don't lie down, they stand up. They're lying down, you set a heat sink on top of it, and gravity helps you there. But if it's standing up, then too heavy a heat sink and whatever adhesive material you have to keep it to the processor, it's going to fall off. So there's only so much of a heat sink you can put on it in the first place anyway. But yeah, you'd have to dig through, get some thermal tape, get a heat sink, see what the capacity for holding on is. That would be worth a try, I guess, but only if this is a monitor you can afford to blow the hell up. So I would not recommend running them caseless. They do have electromagnetic interference because and another thing, it depends on let's see, does this monitor have external Let me look on the back. Does this monitor have an external? It does not. This has an internal power supply. That means this thing's got some hella big capacitors in there.
Indeed.
And they could potentially be carrying lethal charges. You don't know this. I don't know the size of the capacitors in there. Never screw around with a power supply if you don't know what you're doing. So running this caseless now, it even seems even like an even worse idea. I would say bad juju. I would say it's not worth it. You especially right now, you'd probably be able to find a good deal on a 90 hertz 24 inch. I mean, they're easier to. You can probably find something used on eBay or something that would be fixed. It would be a better idea than trying to crank out a little more power out of this one. This is a bad call. So sorry if that's not the answer you were looking for, but I don't want you to blow up your shit. All right. Next up. Hey, everybody. I'm looking for an opinion on these cheap Stream Deck alternatives I keep seeing. This brand is on Amazon, and I've seen them going for as little as 50 to 60, which is half the cost of the same size Stream Deck. And let's show you this company. It's called Sumfun. I don't know if that means it's supposed to be some fun, but that's what it's called. And what these look like knockoff Stream Decks. If you don't know what a Stream Deck is, it's a separate controller that you can use to add, macro buttons to your system. I make use of one to control my stream, and people use them for other things like Photoshop and Premiere and other things where they have a lot of repetitive tasks. They have to use them a bunch.
Yeah. And it's a great thing to have. If you got, in this case, some of these models, it looks like that one has 16 buttons.
And the 15 button model, the 15, 16 button model from Elgato, which is the company that has put out the Stream Deck, those run for about 140 bucks. For a 15 key option here, I looked on Amazon, you could find it for about 50, 60 bucks, which is half the cost that Elgato's offering. So what are the pros and cons? How do I make sure everything I have would work with it? Mainly I'm concerned with Photoshop and OBS, but I'd like to see what else it can do too. Thank you both. Toe cutter.
Okay, so
it's a Mad Max reference. Okay.
What I'm seeing here is that they say, hey, we've got these functions. Here's what you can do. We've got an entire library of shortcuts and plugins you can download. What I would see, I don't necessarily see it here on the site. Maybe you have to register first. See what their library of plugins looks like. If it covers Photoshop, and some of the screenshots seem to indicate that it does, then it might well handle what you've got. I mean, I see the Photoshop. I'm looking at one of their screenshots here. And I see the Photoshop, I see Premiere buttons.
Well, okay, it's also a matter of
but it depends on how in depth it is. So that Photoshop button there. Yeah.
So all right, pros and cons. The pros obviously is the price. In my opinion, the Stream Deck, the whole line is overpriced. Even the new one, the Stream Deck Neo that they just came out with, it's got 8 buttons with a touch screen on it, whatnot. Understand what the Stream Deck is. And a lot of people don't, so I'm going to break the mystique for you. A Stream Deck is a touch screen. And what they've done is they've put a layer between the touch screen and you that looks like a button. But underneath it, it's just a regular it's just a regular off-the-shelf touch screen that you can buy, mass produced, you can get. It's just a touch screen. And for the Stream Deck Plus, what they do is they add some rotation controls as well. But overall, just a touch screen with some accoutrements on it. So for what it is way overpriced. So the price here...
It's one of those cases where you are paying for the brand name.
But the downside here is Elgato is a known name. Elgato is a subsidy of Corsair. They work with a lot of people in the industry. They work with a lot of people who make software. And not just that, they've opened their ecosystem up so other people can make plugins for Stream Deck for stuff that's not covered. For example, one of the plugins I have for my Stream Deck is Home Assistant. That's my home automation software. I can control air conditioners and the lights and some of the security cameras we got outside. I can do all that stuff through Home Assistant, and then Stream Deck will allow me to program buttons for it because someone made that plugin. Someone in the channel is mentioning Elgato has an ecosystem. The theory works well together, but there are other options. Elgato has some companies they work closely with. I'm pretty sure they work very closely with OBS. So if you're worried about streaming, you say you want to do Photoshop and OBS, the Elgato plugin for OBS, they probably work very closely with the people behind OBS. And likely with Photoshop and Adobe and whatnot, to the point where if you get the plugin, it already has predefined actions that have been tested to work with the software. Now, there's another way you can do that, and that is you make a macro yourself. It's just a lot more complicated. Like even my Stream Deck right now, even for software that's not technically supported, I could design a macro and tell the Stream Deck, all right, press this button, wait 60 seconds, execute this command, blah, 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 blah. And it would do all those things in order for me. Just like any other macro you could set up. So that it's a crapshoot here on if these have this kind of support that Elgato does. And then there's also a question of support. I know that Elgato will service some of these if you have a warranty for them. I bought mine used. I don't have a warranty on it. I did get a good deal on mine. Stream Deck Plus. It's been a great thing to have. It's made the streaming a whole lot easier for me. It's just a matter of what's supported, what you can do with it going forward. And I looked at some of the software. I looked at the setup, the manual. Did not instill me with a lot of, great. Now, that being said, these are going to evolve and they're going to become more competitive with Elgato because they've identified a niche. And they are racing to the bottom on price because they can. Because again, like I said, these are just plain old off-the-shelf touchscreens. They're not really expensive touchscreens. They're not really good touchscreens. They don't need to be. They just need to be there to act as controls. So it's a risk is what I'm saying. I mean, if you're willing to throw down the cost to see how well it works and,
I mean, if $50 is a thing you can spend to test it out and go, maybe you can test it out and go, this works well, I'm doing my job, or doesn't in the Amazon return period. Hey.
Now I do know, let me double check here. Razer has gotten in on this already. They're starting as well. They have theirs looks crazy compared to, my God. Razer is doing this as well. They have the Razer Stream Controller is what it's called.
It's got a touch screen, it's got knobs, it's got buttons.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get a price on it. The only thing is, it does have a few more features than Elgato does, and Razer is a big enough of a company where they can get an ecosystem going as well.
Wait a second. That's not a touchscreen. They're saying those are switchblade keys.
Yeah, that might be, because that's a specific thing that Razer has worked on. It also has haptic feedback for some of the buttons, so it's a neat thing. But I don't know if how much the bells and whistles really enhance the what you need to do, because you just need buttons that if you push it, it does a thing. Now that's not to say this might not be a really good good device or something. I don't know. I feel like there are going to be more companies getting into this space as time goes on. See what, yeah, take a risk. Why not? They're nice little devices. If I'd say another thing would be if you'd be concerned about how much you rely on this for like work type stuff. If it's something you're going to have to try and lean on for doing a production stuff for your system, it might seem like a deal at first, but if this thing breaks down or it just doesn't work very well, yeah. So it's a gamble, because it's one of these companies where I don't know the name, I don't know the reputation, and
yeah,
I don't know who's behind them.
I mean, the fact that they have, I will say, the fact that they have their own website is a teeny tiny plus over the standard Amazon Scrabble bag name company.
Yeah. Still, I'd be more willing to gamble on a company like Razer for one of these controllers than I would for, All right, next question. This is from Tessa. Hey, Nash, Mike, and Kitties. Nash, I saw you say something about a broken keyboard you bought on Blue Sky as a project. We're sorry about your friend. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. What did you get? Well, okay, this is one nice thing that happened this week, I guess. I was browsing eBay because I was looking for a project to mess around with, and I found a Corsair K100 keyboard. Now, keep in mind that what's the price on that right now? It's still in production. They still make it. It's a $200.
$200.
It was $250 originally. Oh wait, I think they got one on sale. Oh, they've got it on sale. Yeah, you can get one as low as $150, but that's the optical. Well, still. Oh no, it's a refurb. All right, yeah, the refurb's $150, but the buying it new, $200 for a K100. Well, there was one that was listed as for parts are not working. And when you hear what not working qualifies as, you're going to slap yourself. The left shift key didn't work. The left shift key doesn't work. Yeah. But they put it up as for parts or not working. Now, that's one of the things you should not do on eBay, because that puts people in a different mindset when they're about to purchase something. They're thinking, oh, this is busted, so I'm not going to spend as much money on this. They also did another dumb thing. They set the reserve at 0.
How much did you get a $200 keyboard with a dysfunctional left shift key for?
$30. Do you know it gets better?
You've already fixed the left shift key.
No, well, I haven't gotten it yet. Do you know what? It gets better. I got pictures of it. I'll show you how it gets better, because you're gonna be like, oh shit. So here's the one I bought, and if you look closely here at the USB connectors, and here on, let's see if people at home can figure out what I spotted that looks interesting on this keyboard. If you look very closely, who else is picking it up? Is it just me, or is anyone else picking up what I picked up? That's right, Seth. It still has the protective cellophane over the parts on it. This thing hasn't been used very much, if at all. It's damn near brand new. $30. So
And
hello? I'm losing Mike here.
You all about always see you wasn't my screen. I don't know if that thing on not having on is cheap. So I've frozen on.
You're back. What the
This
hell
may
happened?
be me. Okay. I don't know. It just okay. So the only thing I'll say about the cellophane still being on there,
yeah,
is the fridge downstairs is at this point 2 or 3 years old, and it still has the plastic sheeting on the shelves. Some people leave it on there forever.
Maybe. But also, I know I know that the acrylic's going to be in good shape, so it's going to look nice. But yeah, I sniped the sucker for $30 because no one else was interested because they put it as for parts or not working. So this is a mechanical.
Well, okay, and keep in mind you will still have to check it out. It might have more than the left shift key, and that's just the only thing they put down.
Well, the nice thing, this is a mechanical keyboard, which means it has mechanical standardized switches. There were two versions of this. There's an optical one, which is really kind of neat. It's based on, it's very simple actually. The switch goes down and blocks a light, and that's how it determines. And then you raise the switch and the light goes through, and that's how it determines if you push the button. So it's a non-contact switch, and in theory it's much faster, but that's not. They had an optical, that's called an optical switch, and then they had a regular mechanical switch. This one is a mechanical switch style.
Yes, and I looked it up. It's cherry switches. So even if there is more wrong with it than this, I think you've got at least $30 worth of cherry switches there.
Yeah, but what I'm going to do is I've got on order some cherry switches that I'm going to, since for $30 I can afford for this keyboard to die. I can afford to screw it up. Now I have done a little bit of research, and I have a K95 right now with brown switches. I've never really been happy with the brown ones, but if I open it up and screw with it, I could potentially lose this keyboard. So the thing is, the K95, very easy to open up. You can get this thing to open up all the way. All the parts come apart. It's made to be taken apart and messed with. You can fix it. Good one. The K95, it's a good model. This one is very similar, except underneath this part, the part at the top with the sailboat logo and the little plastic area there, underneath that, there are two screws. You can't access them. I don't know why they did this. In order to access them, you have to find some way of removing that protective panel, and people have tried it with heat guns, and it just ruins it. So the only way to get this thing completely apart, it's like all the screws except for these two, you have to kind of bend it open a little bit, go inside, and snip the plastic posts off at the base to get it the rest of the way open. So you have to, it's a destructive thing to get this open. And Raritor says, would it be easy to desolder and solder the new switches? Yeah, very easy. Replacing, they make keyboards, mechanical switch keyboards these days that you can do it without soldering. You can just plug them in and unplug them, and it's like a whole thing. It's subculture, in fact. Or you can do it with soldering. And this one I'd have to do it with soldering. But that's not that hard to do. It's just 2 solder points per key. It'll take a while, but it's not hard to do. Mike, did you lock up again? Mike locked up again. Mike? Are you there? How many fingers, Mike?
I'm not.
Mike? Mike has been banished to the Phantom Zone. Oh! Opa! Let's try that again.
Hey, are we back?
We're back.
Hey,
Hey.
about a 45 minutes before the show, I said, should I reboot before the show? And I said, no. There's been no changes since last week, and now that I think about it, maybe there have been, but
Yeah. Yeah, Diagoras, your K70 is probably pretty easy to open. Yeah. It's just you'll need a special thing called a switch puller, which even after desoldering, you're gonna need a switch puller to remove the key from the plate. That's the base part. But once you do that, you can snap in some new ones and solder them in place. And yeah, you replace the cherry keys very easily. So I'm going to do that. I had two options. And one of them is getting returned, depending on how much I like them. This is another keyboard I have. This is like my travel keyboard. It's a super cheap one. Got this ages ago. And these, don't know how well you can hear this. You hear that?
I can't hear a thing. Okay, when I unmuted the stream, I could hear them on the stream, but not through to me.
Weird.
Yeah.
Barely. These are blues. All right. It's a matter of there are different varieties of cherry switches, and each one has its own
Characteristics.
Characteristics, yeah. The one I'm using right now are called, all right, the classic cherry switch that was used by IBM back in the 80s that everyone really reveres is the cherry blue. It's the clicky one that's tactile. When you push it, you know
Great.
you push the button. This one has cherry blue switches. The only downside is they loud. They make some noise, and you can drive other people crazy, or you can even eventually drive yourself crazy with them. So I want a
I work
keyboard
IT. I was already crazy.
There are other switches in there. There are others that are called linear switches that have no tactile bump to them at all. You just push them straight down. And they tend to be a little faster. And you need those. There's a silver speed switch if you want it for ultra gaming and you want a fast, switch. There's red, there's black. Then there's the tactile ones. You have blue, click. Green, it takes a little bit more force to push it down and it clicks. You have brown, which clicks, but actually brown has the tactile bump. You can sort of feel when you press it, but it doesn't have the clicky to it. And then there's the one I was interested in, which is clear, which has more of a tactile. Clear feels like pushing down a blue switch, but it doesn't make any noise. So I'm going to decide if I'm going to go with the blue that make this click noise and see if I can live with it, if I like it, or if I like the clear ones and they have the tactile bump, but they don't click. So I'm going to see what I like. I even asked Sarah before, like, would this keep you up? Because this one has blue switches. She said, nah, it'll be fine. But regardless, I'll see what when they show up and which one I'm going to use. I got the clear ones on sale on Corsair's website for half off. It's like they all the other types are gone except for the clear ones. They were selling them for a while apparently. So yeah. Let's see. One more question. And yeah, I'm going to, oh, by the way, part of the reason I got it was I thought I can do this on stream. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get it. I'm going to remove the old switches and I'll put the new switches on. I'm going to do it on stream because it's a very, very easy soldering job. So we'll see. I'll see which switch I like and then we'll put it together and it'll be neat. So, and then I'll have this nice one, this K95 as a backup in case anything happens, which considering I rely on this keyboard has actually Stream Deck keys on it. G keys that I can use with the Stream Deck software because Corsair, Elgato, same company. So I get effectively I get 6 extra Stream Deck keys on my keyboard, which is nice because the Stream Deck Plus only has 8, so that gives me a total of 14 buttons. Anyway, let's move on to our last questions from Daryl. Hello, Nash and Mike. The Wi-Fi on my laptop is incredibly slow with speed tests at only 10 to 15 megabits per second at most. Everything else is fine. Phones, tablets, gaming consoles, etc. on the same network can get 50 to 400 megabit per second, depending on how new they are. What things should I check that might be slowing down my laptop? Now, Daryl, you're in the channel here, so I can ask you this. Did this is a condition that started, right? It's obviously not always been slow, which
or is it just because you've been using the laptop more lately, you've noticed it?
Yeah, is this like an involving condition? The
first thing that comes to mind. Okay, notice in the past week. The first thing that comes to mind is whatever the correct technical term for frequency overlap is. You've got too many devices in the same frequency band, which can happen rather trivially the more electronics you have. So the first thing I would check to see is, are all the devices working well on the 5 gigahertz band, the 2.4 gigahertz band, and the laptop is on the other, because there could be a performance hit that's going on?
Yeah, with Wi-Fi these days, we have 2 main bandwidths that are used for Wi-Fi signal at the 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz, like Mike said. For the longest time, all we had was the 2.4 gigahertz, and a lot of devices use the 2.4 gigahertz. The advantage of it is it can go further and you can get a signal further. The downside is being at a lower bandwidth, it can't transmit as much data. The 5 gigahertz can transmit more data, doesn't go as far. And also 5 gigahertz, even to this day, is less crowded and involves less collisions than 2.4 gigahertz, especially considering 5 gigahertz doesn't get interfered with as much as 2.4 gigahertz. There are a lot of devices bump into 2.4.
And part of the reason, of course, is why a lot of your less expensive devices will only have the option for 2.4 when they do Wi-Fi, is because it's just a cheaper chip at this point.
Yeah, for example, the cameras we got to replace the Wise, those and the Wise cameras could only do 2.4 gigahertz because they're cheap little cameras, and they don't need to do more than that. So the first, which band of network are you on? Are you on a 5 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz? If it's a 2.4,
switch to 5.
Yeah.
Now, there's the possibility that your laptop's wireless NIC, depending on the age of the laptop, there we go, 2.4, may not do 5 gigahertz. And, it has Wi-Fi 4. I have to look at that spec. If it cannot do 5 gigahertz, you may have to invest in a relatively inexpensive USB Wi-Fi dongle.
It supports, it's 802.11n, supports 2.4 and 5 gigahertz.
Okay, good. So, yeah, I'd switch, because I never remember which Wi-Fi standard is when it started doing 5. Because
I've noticed one thing I've noticed with Wi-Fi devices, more with routers, but other things too, is, and this has happened, laptops, I've had this happen before. Wireless cards die at a rate I don't see with other add-on cards. It's got to be something with the wireless radio. I don't know if they actually use like little crystal transmitters on there. They might. It is radio. I haven't looked into how they, the low end of stuff. Can't find where to change it. Well, it depends. You have to have a 5 gigahertz network available for it to connect to. If your router's only putting out 2.4 gigahertz, but if your router's only putting out 2.4 gigahertz and nothing else is having a problem, that starts speaking to hardware. Your Wi-Fi NIC network interface card on the motherboard on your laptop might be dying. They do
Yeah.
die. And fortunately, they're a cheap part. Unfortunately, getting at them in some laptops is okay. If you can't see the all right, Daryl, if you can't see the 5 gigahertz network on your laptop, then apparently that card's not capable of connecting to it. So the next thing to try is get a USB Wi-Fi NIC, and they're not that expensive right now. Just get a basic one that will do the job and compare the two. And if the USB starts working at a faster speed, then that NIC is probably dying. But fortunately, the USB will present you with an option for, getting around it.
And you can get one for like $13. I mean, it's really inexpensive. Or less, depending on.
It might not be the super fastest, newest one, but it will work. But that's probably the best thing I could suggest is getting a hold of you. Or if you can't get something right now, borrow a USB network card or a USB network adapter and see if the speeds increase. And if it does, that points to a hardware issue. Now, if that doesn't fix it, something might be up with your software, but that's a bridge. Let's check the NIC first before we go there. Yeah, it's the first thing. Only because it's the only device. It's the only thing I've ever seen go bad like that. And not just once, repeatedly.
Yeah, we had a series of laptops at work. It was 2-3 seat refreshes ago, so several models ago, where the USB, it's not the USB, the network, the wireless card in it would just go bad. Now, fortunately for me, it was an easy fix. You pop off the back panel, you undo the 2 screws that hold the antenna cable for it, and the antenna cable is just a simple cable that goes entirely around the screen of the laptop. And you're not pulling that cable out, you're just undoing it. And then the 1 screw holding the card in, take the card out. And what I would do is I had a pile of dead machines that were dead for other reasons. Mm-hmm. And I would just crack one open and take the card from it and put it in, reconnect everything and go, oh, look, Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I don't know why they fail like does anyone actually know? I haven't ever looked it up. Do they have radio crystals in them? Because they do have radio transmitters, but I don't know if they've got to a new technology that I'm not as well versed in radio transmission. Just saying, but if they have quartz crystals, I've seen those on even recent stuff. That might be the reason why, but then again, I don't know. All I know is I've had Wi-Fi routers die at a faster rate than any other electronic. I've had Wi-Fi cards die at any other. Like I've got video cards that are 20 years old, still work like the day they came off the production line. But I had like NIC cards last me 2 years at most.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
So Daryl, I don't have any recommendations on a specific brand, because it's not something I've gone into very often. There seems like there's a decent one, fairly highly rated on Newegg. The brand name is Fenvi, and it is $9.50, and it's AC 1300 dual band Wi-Fi dongle.
Mm. And I see
some
Asus ones. I see some Asus ones. They are way overpriced for what they do. TP-Link has a bunch of lower end ones, which I'm feeling better about TP-Link because I just put in a bunch of their stuff and it's working. Like there is a $12 AC 600. It's a little slow. But the $12 one you can grab.
Well, yeah, like I say, the $9 one for AC 1300, it seems like it's a better deal.
Yeah, it's true.
Even if it's a brand, but TP-Link is, as Nash said, they've gotten strangely better. Although,
Yeah.
maybe we should say they really couldn't have gotten terribly worse. We're not getting any money from TP-Link ever.
No, we're not getting. Yeah. But yeah, if you feel comfortable trying to take the laptop apart, and it depends on the model and how easily accessible that NIC card is. Some of them are just like right underneath a panel you can get right at. Some of them are just under the keyboard, and some of them are buried down the hell in there. It all depends. Usually it depends on, is it a laptop that was designed for a work environment? You can get at it very easily. Is it a gaming laptop? You ain't doing shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. I would check your specific model. It may just be a bad card, as we said. But I would be willing to bet that card is going to be more expensive as a replacement than the USB dongle. Okay. Wow, the only other thing I would check with the USB dongles is some of them have started switching over to USB-C is what they're selling by default. So make sure you have an available port.
Mm-hmm. Or an adapter, but yeah. Wow, folks, we got actually 3 more questions in, but we are a half hour overtime anyway tonight. So I'm sorry, we'll have to get for Emilio, Colin, and Josh, we'll have to get your questions next week. I'm sorry. We had a lot that we got talking this week. I don't know. Thank you for the questions though. We will answer them. Just, all right.
Unless they are so overtaken by events that we can't.
All right. Well, let me see. Okay, it's a recommendation for a device. That one is upgrading computer. All right. Well, some of these look like they can wait. All right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we will get to these. I'm just sorry. We're running late on time tonight. All right. We'll be back next week, Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you have tech questions for us, please send those to requests@radiodeadair.com or put them in the comments of this YouTube video. In the meanwhile, for Mike and myself, we will see you next time. Good night, folks.